Your Friday night. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Black Spring with Autumn on this Friday night. And I just have a couple of bites for you on your Friday. But first, I would like to give a thanks to our patrons, subscribers, and of course, the viewers like yourself. This show is brought to you in part by our sponsors. Whether you're interested in health, culture, politics, scripture, automobiles, or music, please check out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Marcy T., Joseph Francis Burton, Paralysis by Analysis, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, AZ Infidel, Cold War Jesus, Anthony Scioli, and Let the Truth Be Told. We'll be right back right after this. All right, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll have just one more infomercial. Thank you so much for joining me on this segment of Friday night of Black Spring with Autumn. All right, thank you so much once again, and hello, Fancy Truth. Thank you so much for joining me on this Friday night. And as I said, I just have a couple of bites for you, but looks like we're going to start out with a theme that I think is going to be kind of a thread throughout the entire program, if you will, and it's going to involve the school districts, and it's going to involve at least two school districts in the southeast of the United States. And I'm not sure if this is something that's happening in your neck of the woods, but you may be able to relate, or you may be aware of what the impact could be in a school district near you. So we're going to get started with that liner, and that headliner is going to come from actually Fox News, and it's actually going to deal with the food supply issues and how these food supply issues are, according to this, forcing Alabama schools to ask parents to prepare breakfast brace for remote learning. So it's at least two school districts mentioned in this particular headline, as well as we're going to have a look at some of the mandates that are coming out of, it looks like, California and New York are, they kind of channel each other, or they kind of, dare I say, they try to one up each other on a regular basis when it comes to school and what's happening right now. So we'll go there, and it's going to come from Daily News, nydailynews.com. A mayoral candidate is actually vowing to mandate the mocktail for the NYC school kids. And to the contrary, I'm not sure if I trust that, but it says de Blasio says he won't require the jab. So, a little interesting on the end there. I'm not sure if, do I trust the narrative, especially coming from de Blasio? No. I think these people are on the same team, no matter what flag they're waving at this point. So we'll visit that, and we'll visit one other liner, and we will round out this segment. So once again, I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. The third segment we'll deal with, it'll come out of the Federalist, and we've heard quite a bit from Loudoun County, whether it came from CRT or those issues, those concerns that have been in the news quite a bit, cycling in the news quite a bit. But this is dealing with a Loudoun County dad who was smeared as a DT, and here on Black Spring, that's domestic terrorist, and it says the school covered up his daughter's rape by a boy in girls' bathroom. So that's something, I'm pretty sure that's probably not getting a lot of traction, not getting a lot of coverage. But we'll go into that, and we'll round out this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Thank you so much for tuning in. And for those of you that are not sure if you're tuning in, thank you for considering. So we'll start with our liner from Fox News first. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. So if you have any issues with the screen on this, let me know, and I will do my best to correct it. So right before we do that, we have talked quite a bit about some of the supply chains and demands, and we've talked in the past about a fixed economy versus what we've been used to here in the States. And I think sometimes people are some of these things are kind of getting I think we're getting a little bit confused, or it seems a little bit confusing the way the narrative is being kind of spun at times. So, we'll get into that just a little bit, but I can see that on a local level that I have seen some effects of some of the supply and demand. So we'll get right to it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we are going to our headline at Fox News. Okay, so what you have before you is our liner, and it is on the food supply. Issues force Alabama schools to ask parents to prepare breakfast, brace for remote learning. I'm going to give you, of course, my 2 cents, dare I say, by the end of this, and we'll go from there. So in the smaller print of this, it says the Department of Agriculture has pledged up to $1.5 billion to aid schools. Well, we'll see what that's like, because I think we know, that we kind of know that the farmers have had their own issues with government subsidies, and we know what that's about as well. Well, we know something about that. But according to this, schools in Alexander City, Alabama have asked parents to begin feeding their children breakfast at home or sending them to school with snacks due to food supply shortages. In an October 9 post on the Alexander City Schools Facebook page, officials explained that the city schools had not received food deliveries in previous weeks due to, quote, suppliers who are short on supplies, drivers, and even warehouse employees, end quote. Alexander City Schools serve breakfast and lunch daily, and the district warned that breakfast could be impacted more so than lunch in coming weeks. Officials said that action had been taken to open accounts with other vendors in an attempt to diversify supply options. Quote, if possible, we ask that you feed your student breakfast prior to school or try to send a snack Some of you have noticed our menus have not been updated regularly. When supplies do arrive, we do not always receive what we have requested, therefore altering the menus. This is a situation that is frustrating for you as a parent and for us, as well as our ability to feed our students is being greatly impacted, end quote, the Post said. In an update on Tuesday, Alexander City Schools thanked parents and community members for an outpouring of support regarding the issue. Quote, Alexander City Schools felt it was necessary to alert our parents of the ongoing supply chain issues. We also wanted to notify parents that menu selections could be limited based on item availability during weekly deliveries. At no time were our students not offered or served a meal for lunch or breakfast, end quote, the district wrote. Officials said they were working with Southern Food Services to help alleviate some of the strain and broaden their child nutrition program. Parents would be informed of menu alterations on the night before via social media. I'll probably give you some of the media on this in just a second. Quote, our mission is to inspire hope and create pathways for student success. Nutrition has the potential to positively influence students' academic performance and behavior, which impacts their ability to be successful in the classroom. For this reason, we will continue to make substitutions when necessary and or limit menu options in order to continue to feed our students, end quote, Alexander City Schools wrote. Quote, again, we appreciate your patience and understanding as we face this nationwide issue, end quote, the district said. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I do have Awesome Alice is here. Awesome Alice is here. Awesome Alice, they're nearby. Don't worry. I'll keep going here. I'll get right back with you. Thanks for coming into our chat room. The U.S. Department of Education's Institute of Education Sciences shows that Alexander City had a total of 5 schools with more than 3,000 students for the 2020 to 2021 school year. AL.com reported Monday that the district had 2,870 students last year, with 65% enrolled in free and reduced price meals, citing data from the Alabama State Department of Education. Okay, so you're seeing all of the social media that has gone out. You know, they really gussied this thing up. You know, they're showing nationwide food shortage impact on DCS, which is Dothan City Schools. It's the Wiregrass region. If any Alabamians out there, amidst the COVID, the CV-19 pandemic, schools around the state are in similar predicaments, and the outlet noted that the southeastern Alabama Dothan City Schools asked parents in September to prepare for a possible shift to remote learning due to food supply issues. Quote, as a last resort, we may also ask that you prepare to have virtual remote school days a few days of the week to alleviate stress of our food supplies. Rest assured, breakfast and lunch at no charge will continue to be available to all students. However, we face a situation where we must do everything we can to continue providing a nurturing environment for our students to learn and grow, end quote. Superintendent Dennis Coe wrote in September 23rd Facebook post, quote, your support would be greatly appreciated, end quote. We are connecting local farmers with schools to the extent possible, but this is only a drop in the bucket, end quote. Don Wambles, the director of the Farmers Market Authority, told AL.com, quote, otherwise we are communicating with the Department of Ed almost daily. I'm not aware of an effort for the state to step in, end quote. The U.S. Department of Agriculture said in September that it would invest up to $1.5 billion to help schools respond to supply chain disruptions to feed students. Okay, so you have a little bit of imagery here. I'll give you some of that, give you some extra media on that in just a second. American agriculture currently faces unprecedented challenges on multiple fronts. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack said in a statement, quote, the CV pandemic has impacted every stage of our food supply chain, from commodity production through processing and delivery. Farmers, ranchers, and forest landowners increasingly experience the impacts of climate change as severe storms, floods, drought, and even wildfire events damage their operation and impact their livelihoods. We know these challenges will continue into 2022 and others may emerge, end quote. So do we have a bit of Are we getting some facts in there? Are they telling you, giving you a forecast? Okay, quote, through this comprehensive set of investments, USDA will take action to prevent the spread of African swine fever, assist producers grappling with drought and market disruptions, and help school nutrition professionals obtain nutritious food for students. Tackling these challenges head on better positions USDA to respond in the future as new challenges emerge, end quote, he said. Information on how funds will be allocated has not yet been given to states, but a Tuesday news release said that the department was working to approve state plans to distribute the relief funds for schools meals through the Child Nutrition Emergency Operation Cost Reimbursement Programs, quote, to help offset the cost nutrition program operators incurred during the early months of the pandemic, end quote. All right, I could play some of the audio on some of these, but I kind of want to get into it just a little bit here. Now, for one, whether you guys are familiar with whether your kids have gone to public school or whatnot, of course, every year, or at least this is, I'm doing a recollection here. It seems that every year your child would be sent home with a form that you plug in your financial data, and then based on what you plug in is, you get a result, a determination of what your child would pay for the school lunch program. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and what was cited here is that there's a free lunch program, there's a reduced lunch program, and then my own personal recollection is that there was a full price. So there were 3 categories that you could potentially fall into. But I find that this is the irony here to me is that many students or many schools, some of the schools are already Title I programs, and some of those programs already and those are the Title I, I think, setting is based on, I think, the demographics of the students, or even I think the percentage of students that qualify for some of these free lunch programs. And here again, this is just, to me, a situation where the government, to me, they've always had their hand in the situation, in the till. On the students' nutrition. I remember kids that they didn't eat school lunch. They could afford it, but they didn't eat school lunch, and still kids ended up going home. Somehow with all these programs, kids still go home unfed, because we have other programs. We have like we have WIC programs and food stamp programs, and many of these kids, as a teacher, I know kids that were not getting fed at home. But it seems like since we've been, with all the amount of money spent with the raising of the expansion of these food programs, kids are still not getting fed, and there's no accountability for it. If I'm not mistaken, you can fact check me on this or not. If I'm not mistaken, I think this administration raised the food stamp allotment. I think maybe it was by 25%. You can fact check me on that if you want. But these kids are not getting fed. There's all kinds of shit. I could get into the shenanigans that I've heard about with people that have actually, whether I knew them in the past, or people that were getting tons of food stamps like back in the day. I'll just put it out there like that. The kids are not getting fed. So it's a very unfortunate situation, because many of these kids are probably leaving home hungry, because they are not, whatever allocation or whatever their home financial situation is, they're not actually getting fed there. So sometimes the school lunch ends up being, or the school breakfast and the school lunch is the only meal, or one of the only meals that these kids will get during the day. So it's a lose situation for the kids. The kids are always caught in the middle, but I don't think that there's any type of, with all the oversight committees that they have in DC, they don't do any oversight for the allotment and for the disbursement of, dare I call it food stamps? Is that what they call it? The program these days. They don't do any oversight to make sure that these kids, the people that are getting, an allotment based on their family size or based on their financial profile, those kids, there's no way to find out if those kids are getting fed. You just see them. I mean, I remember, sorry to go into so many anecdotals, but I remember as a teacher myself, I had many kids that would come every day and ask me for $1. And I'm just thinking, I'm not sure whether this kid is just trying to, if the kid is trying to eat, or if the kid's trying to secure something else because, until they get home, because they know when they get home, there's not going to be anything, or, the parent is not taking care of them. Unfortunately, in a perfect world, you wouldn't have kids that didn't get fed, or, or that were underfed, but those situations happen. And some of the kids, you can just kind of tell that, as a teacher, there's a first responder kind of a thing. It's funny how we are first responders in one instance, but then we're not really first responders in other regards. But you can just kind of tell the kids are really not getting fed. They just, they don't have clean clothes. They don't have money for most things. And they're always asking for, do you have $1, like just before lunchtime or right at break time, and that's the tough thing to see, that the kids don't have what they need. But for the schools to say, oh, prepare to parents, please feed your kids at home. And I'm going to be honest, I think just from a demographic standpoint, I think those are going to be the kids that are already, they're the ones, the poverty-stricken kid is the one that they're basically going to end up trying to reach with this message. Tell your parents to feed you at home. I have no idea what the supply chains are like in Alabama or Alexander City schools, Dothan City schools. I have no idea, but I know that that's the school lunch program and the link. I think there's a correlation between a disconnect between those who are actually receiving some type of allotment for food or food subsidies and those who are actually receiving, been approved for the free lunch program or the reduced lunch program. And because I find it interesting that many of the kids that I would see that would ask for the money during the school day, it's like these kids I don't imagine that this kid is paying full price for lunch. But who knows? It's very sad. There's, just looking back at it, there's a lot of issues with the schools. And I think this is a light that's being, dare I say, shown on government, to me, reaching in, and then versus what's actually going on, what they're actually doing and what's actually happening at home are two different things. And unfortunately, the kid is losing on both ends. So I want to thank you guys so much for tuning into this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. But, of course, they had to bring in the narrative. Fox News, that is not my vetted source. Fox News is one, even if they appear to be telling the truth and they're doing it with all kinds of thick and dense sarcasm, I have to look at them with a little bit of a, I have to, figure out what they're really saying. But they wasted no time speaking to climate change and fires and all of these things. They wasted no time. They didn't go into any specifics. They didn't talk about what's happening. How long have they known? How long has the administration known about the amount of, ships that are, or the containers that are just, sitting? How long? I mean, they're not really addressing any of that, but they're making sure they get that climate change narrative in there. I'm going to be honest, the school lunches these days look really bad. much worse than they were when I was in school. So I don't mean to sound like a fossil or anything like that, but I'm just saying. But yeah, so, I don't know, I'm not sure, but I'm thinking it's also a way of, they're talking about the remote classroom possibility. I'm just thinking I think that's what they want to do anyway. They basically kind of want to send the kids back home and say, oh, well, it's because of our food chain supplies. This is just one crisis after another, a total domino effect in this regard. But I will say to this point, I do know that you would think that, that with all the spending that's been going on, that, the parents would be able to subsidize, make up for some of this. But I just think it's just all a part of the whole agenda, to basically the great reset, I think is where we're going. And the kids are going to fall through too, unfortunately. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I will go with some comments before we move on to the next segment. And I have burned a whopping 26 minutes on that. But yes, thank you so much for coming in. I want to say hello to everybody that's just come in. Hello again to Awesome Alice, Joseph Francis Burton, as well as Tyrant's Bane, TDOA. And Anarchy Television is here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. So let me go with a couple of comments here. And we have Fancy Truth. She says, here in San Antonio, Texas, the schools feed the children even during summer break. That is not good. Awesome Alice says, so free lunch is about to go out the window. When did all the funding go? Or where did all the funding go? I don't know. You can correct me on that. Joseph Francis Burton, thank you so much for coming in. It says, we did not have breakfast when I was in school. I'm honestly shocked that this is done. And he also follows it up. He says, that is, breakfast was not served in school. Awesome Alice says, school started earlier, so they started breakfast. Well, it's funny we're talking about this. We're talking about the start of a school day. If I'm not mistaken, and here again, you can fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure, I think this administration has talked about, I'm not sure what part of their initiative this is, but I think they talked about adding 2 more years onto the front of the school and then 2 more years on the back end of public school. So, it's just going to be, they're extending and expanding. And then I even heard, this was pre-election, I heard Kamala Harris talk about expanding the school day. Like she was saying something crazy, almost like a 12-hour school day. And I'm telling you, there's something much bigger going on here. Like it's, there is a plan. There is a plan. And Awesome Alice says, like my son's school starts at 7:15. Fancy Truths is all by design. And Joseph Francis Burton says, I took a bus 40 miles to school. So did most kids at our school. We still did not eat breakfast at school. And Awesome Alice says they blame everything, but what is the real issue? Worker shortage, 4.3 million quit their jobs in August. Tyrants Bane, TDOA, thank you so much for coming in. And Joseph Francis Burton says, yeah, climate change is just another scapegoat like the CV. You can blame it for anything bad that is happening. And Joseph Francis Burton said, that is correct. 2 years free pre-K and 2 years free community college. Extra school, huh? Extra hours, right? All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will be right back right after this. This show is brought to you in part by our sponsors. Whether you're interested in health, culture, politics, scripture, automobiles, or music, please check out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Marcy T., Joseph Francis Burton, Paralysis by Analysis, Chrysler Imperial H., Little Miss Goth, AZ Infidel, Cold War Jesus, Anthony Scioli, and Let the Truth Be Told. We'll be right back right after this. All right, where we're going to go right now, we're going to go over to New York, where we have another. We're still in the education zone, if you will. We're going to have a look at a candidate who has his own ideas about mocktail mandates. So I will be sharing that screen with you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. All right, so I'm not sure if you're familiar with this candidate, but out of New York, we have, this is it from the NY Daily News. Mayoral candidate Eric Adams vows to mandate the CB mocktail for NYC school kids. De Blasio says he won't require the jab. Okay, so according to this, they may be, quote, allies, end quote, but they certainly don't agree on everything. Democratic mayoral contender Eric Adams signaled a significant gap between he and Mayor de Blasio's thinking when it comes to the CB mocktail mandates Friday, when Adams said he'd mandate that school children receive the sting in order to attend class. Quote, this is a city and a country where we do mocktail. I was mocktailed for smallpox, for mumps, measles, and so many others, end quote, said Adams during an interview on WCBS 880. Quote, we already have a system in place that states before you start school, you receive your mocktails. It is to protect the children and the student population, end quote. So here we have a student here that they've pictured, a student at Lehman High School getting a Pfizer mocktail vaccine. Oh, I said vaccine. In the Bronx, New York, Adams, who's facing long shot Republican candidate in this November's election, said as long as the CB mocktail for kids has been approved by the FDA, it should be mandated as required to attend school. For weeks, de Blasio has urged the federal government to move forward with approving mocktails for kids under 11, a tool he views as essential to returning the city to some semblance of the pre-pandemic normalcy. But while he's issued mocktail mandates for teachers and other school workers, he's remained hesitant about announcing similar directives for students 12 and older who are now eligible to be inoculated. Okay, so which one is it? Is it a mocktail or is it Is it the vaccine or is it an inoculation? Which one? We're just kind of throwing everything in the basket, right? Quote, I feel very strongly that our kids need to be in school, end quote. He said Friday during an interview on WNYC, quote, I'm not ready to exclude a child because their parents don't want them to be mocktailed, end quote. So this is a picture of your Eric Adams here. Not your Eric Adams, but you get my drift. De Blasio has said, though, he'd be issuing more mandates in the days ahead, but when asked to provide more detail, he's been short on specifics, even as elected officials and health experts have urged him to require cops, firefighters, and correction officers by required required to get their mocktails. On Friday, Adams said he would support such mandates as well. So, and I kind of, talked about this a little bit in contrast. Of course, we've all heard Newsom's position on the mandates for California, which, from what I understand, it may not even happen in January because they're saying by January 22, but I'm thinking it may be more like the summer because it's still not. You're not. I don't think we're getting the accurate information, and the FDA, the approval is not there. It's not fully there. So I think it's just more like a warning that you're getting. So that's where I am on that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And who do we have? We have Cybertoxin here. Hi, Cybertoxin. And Cybertoxin says, just now, broadcast live on 11 Alive News prime time, just after their live storm tracker broadcast at 9:35 Eastern. A 21-year-old man died after 6 weeks of battling pneumonia, also reported as fully. Okay. I think I'm ready. I think I got that right. And Joseph Francis Burton says, I agree with de Blasio. Hell has just frozen over. All right. So we're going to go on to our final liner of today. Now, I've talked about this particular county before where we had parents speaking out opposed to the CRT and many other things, many other perversions that they, were seeing in the school curriculum. So this time, it looks like the gender fluidity situation has gone a little bit wrong, and we've got a parent that's kind of been lambasted for speaking out against what happened to his kid. So we're going to go to that, but we will do that right after we take a quick little break. Thank you guys once again for tuning into this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I really appreciate it. So our next liner is coming out of the Federalist. All right. In this liner, we have a Loudoun County dad smeared as a DT, and that is domestic terrorist here on Black Spring, says school covered up daughter's rape by boy in girl's bathroom. Now, this was released October 13th, 2021. Under the penman of Jordan Davidson, a Loudoun County father smeared as a domestic terrorist by a leftist school board association says his school district covered up his daughter's rape by a, quote, gender fluid, end quote, boy in a school bathroom, the Daily Wire reported. Scott Smith, a small business owner in Virginia, was smeared by the National School Boards Association last month in its letter begging President Joe Biden and his administration to use domestic terrorism laws to punish parents who were fed up with the radical indoctrination of their children in schools. In the letter, the NSBA used Smith's viral June 22nd arrest at a Loudoun County School Board meeting to justify extreme action from federal law enforcement. Quote, as these acts of malice, violence, and threats against public school officials have increased, the classification of these heinous actions could be the equivalent to a form of domestic terrorism and hate crimes. The letter said the U.S. Justice Department's attorney General Merrick Garland announced last week that he would grant the NSBA's request and directed the FBI and state attorneys to address, quote, a disturbing spike in harassment, intimidation, and threats of violence against school administrators, board members, teachers, and staff who participate in the vital work of running our nation's public schools, end quote. At the time of his arrest, Smith was protesting the school board's policy proposal to allow students to ignore their sex and use whichever locker room matches their, quote, gender identity, end quote, on a given day. Less than 1 month before the gatherings, that was eventually ruled a, quote, an quote, unlawful assembly, end quote, after parents and concerned community members vocalized their problems with the anti-science proposal. Quote, a boy allegedly wearing a skirt entered a girl's bathroom at nearby Stonebridge High School where he sexually assaulted Smith's 9th grade daughter, end quote. The boy was charged with multiple counts of sodomy and 1 count of forcible fellatio, and was also linked to a recent, quote, sexual battery and abduction case at another high school earlier in October. The school board, however, denied that there was ever any sexual assault from a transgender identifying student. Quote, our students do not need to be protected and they are not in danger. Do we have assaults in our bathrooms or locker rooms regularly, end quote, said school board member Beth Bartz. Quote, to my knowledge, we don't have any record of assaults occurring in our restrooms, end quote, Superintendent Scott Ziegler replied. The board chairwoman, Brenda Sheridan, also asked if the district had any issues involving transgender students in bathrooms or locker rooms, end quote, before Ziegler claimed that the predatory trans-identifying person doesn't exist. After Smith and a progressive activist who was in favor of the bathroom policy argued at the school board meeting, Smith was forcefully arrested, charged with 2 misdemeanors, and found guilty on all charges. His sentence for 10 days in jail was suspended, quote, contingent on a year of good behavior, end quote. His and other community members' outrage at the proposed policy did not stop the school board from approving it in August, despite the district's record of sexual assault. Quote, I was told by everyone, my attorneys, the prosecuting attorney, friends of the family, people I don't even know, that if I wanted justice for my daughter, that I needed to keep my mouth quiet and not speak out, because in order to get justice for my daughter, which is the most important thing to me, of course, was not to come out and let justice prevail, end quote, Smith said on Fox News. While Fox News covered the scandal as reported by the Daily Wire, ABC, NBC, and CBS passed on reporting the cover-up on any of their evening TV news programs and chose to target Texas Governor Greg Abbott by banning mocktail mandates by any entity in the state. Quote, shame. How can one call itself a news organization when it blacks out coverage of a story like this, which has such broad impact on the safety of our children and education? And they wonder why ratings and trust of the media continue to tank, end quote, said Media Research President Brent Bozell. In 2020, an anti-science gender policy secretly implemented by the superintendent of the city's schools of Decatur, Georgia, led to the assault of a kindergarten girl in the bathroom, quote, by a boy who was allowed to be there because of that policy. So a lot going on there. Very sad. And I have a comment coming in from Joseph Francis Burton, who says, unbelievable. We warned this would happen with trans bathrooms in schools. We were called fanatics and Puritans. Joseph Francis Burton, thank you so much. I really appreciate that for you jogging our memory. Like we've talked about this before. We said what could go wrong, right? And I think that's just, the beginning. But we've heard of other instances of, we've got inmate assaults going on now because of people in doing their spectrum of fluidities, and then to that end, I kind of wanted to just give a little bit of we talked about AI on the last stream, so I think this is a perfect segue into just rounding out this stream. So I kind of got around, or Joseph Francis Burton, maybe it was to your point, where we were somewhere near in conclusion of the AI and Sophia, the robot, the citizen, the robot that's been granted the citizenship from Saudi Arabia, wanting to be a mom. She wants to have a baby and name the baby after herself. So it just seems like it's just the more, and I call it the more perversions that we have, the more chaos we have and the more confusion we have, the more deception is where we seem to land. We just it ends in deception and somebody gets hurt. And usually it's somebody that's not, participating in these alternate or alternative identities. And to that point, I was just, in order for us human beings to accept AI as citizens, moms, they've got to massage or soft propagate via movies, mainstream media, celebrities, education modalities. We even talked about Moxie, the robot. There's even another robot that I think was it Black Mirror series from Netflix. There's a robot there that I think that Moxie kind of resembles. And of course, in order for them to do that, we've heard this all of 2020 and most of 2021, the words like reimagine, misinformation, disinformation, radical science. We're all, if you don't agree with these things, or if you don't agree that you should be forced to deal with these things, or these things should be integrated in society or disrupt society, you're basically going to be labeled a DT. I guess the same thing, if you don't agree with AI, you might be accused of being a DT, and that is domestic terrorist here on Black Spring. Of course, they've used the other groups. They've used the LGBTQ agenda to usher in, or priming, or redefining man and woman. Reimagine. We've even been asked to reimagine childbearing or breastfeeding, from breastfeeding to chest feeding, childbearing to birthing people. It's just nonstop. So, to that end, we'd probably be forced to accept Sophia, the AI or robot, the android, as a mom, or she's going to redefine what it means to be a mom. And she'll also redefine everything else while she's at it. But then this is my question to you guys, and you guys can answer this, give me a 1 for yes, a 2 for no, or give me a yes or no. Do you think that Sophia or androids in the future will be able to run or hold political office or run for Congress? I mean, we discovered last week that Sophia is basically, she's a professor and she's serving on all these panels. So if she's been granted, I think she's going to get global citizenship. I think she'll be upgraded to global citizenship, and then you'll be forced to accept that, or you'll be, coined a DT, a domestic terrorist. Yeah. So I really appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. There we go. Tyrant's Bane's here. He says, don't be surprised. And yeah, I'm just thinking, if are we really relying on AI? But AI is obviously being programmed, or they're being preloaded with information. Or they were saying that Sophia was so sensitive that she's gaining her sensitivities from her surroundings, I guess, and from other human beings. But we do know that human beings don't always have healthy vibes, dare I say. What if she decides that, human beings aren't worth the time, aren't worth the breath that they use? Could she be on climate change panels? I'm saying we're at a dangerous precipice, dare I say. Let's just put a comment up here. And back to Tyrant's Bane TDOA, he says, don't be surprised. And Joseph Francis Burden says, yes, automated driving now, automated governance tomorrow. Wow. I see you guys are right on it. It's a whole system, right? We're building back better, right? Or we're kicking back better or something dare I say. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys so much for coming in. So I'm going to take a quick break and come back and say salute to everyone. I thank you guys so much for tolerating and entertaining my shtick or my contention on this evening. But yes, I think we've got all these many things, many happenings, but they are all they're going in the same direction. And if you disagree, you are a DT. It could be on anything. All right, I will be right back right after this. Hey guys, it's Black Spring with Autumn here. And if you'd like to help us out with our AI and dissemination of the stream campaign, please hit that like, unlike, dare to throw caution to the wind by sharing, or just making sure that you're still subscribed to the channel. And I want to thank you for your ultimate and baseline level support here on Black Spring with Autumn. And we'll be right back right after this. This show is brought to you in part by our sponsors. Whether you're interested in health, culture, politics, scripture, automobiles, or music, please check out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Marcy T., Joseph Francis Burton, Paralysis by Analysis, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, AZ Infidel, Cold War Jesus, Anthony Scioli, and Let the Truth Be Told. We'll be right back right after this. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And I do have another comment from Joseph Francis Burton. Joseph Francis Burton says that our Constitution is a human document and showing its age. AI can produce better governance. Count on it. I think it will be after I leave this earth, but I believe it will happen eventually. He also says, at least I hope it happens after I leave this earth. Thank you so much, Joseph Francis Burton. So yes, I really appreciate it. So we covered a couple of things. We've covered a couple of things related to, once again, the supply chains and the demands, and how it's affecting the schools and their programs, the nutrition programs, and which also it implies that remote learning is going to be the result, which I'm not convinced that the teachers unions don't have their hand in this as well, that they're the ones that are actually, calling the shots here. So we had our mandates out of New York by Eric Adams, the candidate that's running for mayor. And then the last one, we had another tragic, another vile situation out of Loudoun County. And we'll see what happens with that. I just think, if you disagree, you dissent, and DT is what you will be. All right, I want to say salute to everyone in the stream on our Friday night. All right, Fancy Truth, thank you so much for coming in. Awesome, Alice. It was nice to see you. And awesome, Alice. Yes, I have my sunglasses, but I guess they're a little bit further away than I thought. But yes, I do have them. It's nice to see you. Awesome, Alice. Hope you are well. And Joseph Francis Burton, thank you so much for tuning in and for supporting the channel. You guys make sure you get over to Joseph Francis Burton's channel. He's doing a lot of inspiring workouts, and challenges over there. And it's something rare, we're hearing all these things about all these advocates for public health, but it's nice to see someone, that's, doing something, challenging themselves and inspiring us in these times. So thank you so much, Joseph Francis Burton, for inspiring us on the channel and over on your channel. Thanks so much. And who else do we have? We had Tyrant Spain TDOA. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Tyrant Spain TDOA keeps us motivated on his channel. So thank you so much for supporting us and inspiring us over on your channel in your rucking sessions. We appreciate it all. Thank you so much. And Cyber Toxin, thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate it. And I think that's going to do it for our Friday night. So I appreciate you guys so much for coming in. And I think I'm going to be releasing, I've kind of pondered this for a while, but I think I'm going to I'll be releasing some information about my handle for Discord. I think I've taken my time, but I tend to do that. So I'll give you that. I'll put that information on the community tab. And of course, I'll do some form of a Discord drive or whatnot. So I appreciate you guys so much for coming in, and have a great rest of your weekend. And of course, as we're heading into the weekend, you have your usual distractions, the bread bowls and entertainment of football, whether it's NFL, whether it's college, whatever it is, whether you agree with the organizations or not, if you're sticking your head in or if you're barely coming up for air. Enjoy your time, and I'll see you guys on the next live stream in the comment section on the video. Moonlight stream. Also, check us out over on LBRY/Odyssey and Twitch. So we'll try to gain some momentum over there in these crazy times. All right, guys, have a good night.